right, good afternoon, welcome back. These are the Northeastern Deans, all of them. Welcome, thank you for being here. And as I said previously, this EAI touches every aspect of this university and every dean is here. So what we're going to do we have an hour, actually we have 55 minutes. So the format here is we're going to ask each dean to make remarks, maximum 3 minutes. And then we'll have just a Q&A, just a panel style session. So deans, you're welcome to stay at your seat or you can come up to the podium as you wish. And I guess we'll stick with the alphabetical order. Gregory, you're first. Gregory Abot, Dean of Engineering. I got you.
All right. So I have a couple of thoughts I'll share. First, it's that engineering pervades AI and vice versa. And AI needs much more than engineering to be successful. So that's all you need to remember, but I'll fill in the blanks here. So where does engineering address things with respect to AI? Well, you know that data matters. Getting good data matters. One way to get good data is to create sensors that get data from places that we don't otherwise have good data. There's a lot of expertise in engineering in creating sensing. AI systems are built on algorithms. Algorithms need to run on high-performance computing architectures. Engineers do a lot in terms of architectures to address high-performance computing challenges. So scaling AI solutions, and that's both in terms of the amount of data you can handle, but when you talk about deploying systems, the number of locations where something can work. What I think is particularly interesting that's emerged over the last few years, arguably, is the relationship between data-based approaches to artificial intelligence and also physics-based approaches, which is saying that it's not always just the data that matters. People say data matters, yes it does, but how you interpret that data and the models of the world that you understand can often allow you to do more efficient solutions or different kinds of solutions. From an educational perspective, you may not know this, but Northeastern has the largest graduate engineering program in the country. And at least a third of those students are doing data-intensive programs. So we're doing what we need to be doing to educate this data-savvy workforce, but we're not doubling down, we're tripling down. So over the next 5 years, we hope to triple our graduate enrollment, and we know what areas we need to be able to do that. Where does AI help engineering? Again, everywhere. Let me just give you some examples of domains that our College of Engineering faculty explore with respect to AI. So in the area of climate, so civil and environmental engineering, supply chain understanding. We learned this morning about understanding biomaterials, but other kinds of materials using a computational AI approach to discover and analyze properties of materials, robotics, autonomous vehicles, energy systems, communications, design optimization, computer systems, health systems, which is actually part of industrial engineering as well as elsewhere on campus. The last point, AI needs more than engineering. When we educate engineers, they need to have competence, but they also need to understand the context in which they're applying their competence. So the panel we had right before lunch is a perfect example of how we need to educate people to understand the tools of AI, but understand the social, political, economic context in which those solutions reside. And I'll stop there.
Wonderfully disciplined. Thank you very much. Dan? Dan Cohen, Dean of the Libraries.
Dean of Libraries, thanks. Okay, so libraries and AI, what could possibly be the association? Let me convince you in 2 to 3 minutes. I think that we have people in the audience who know how to, and certainly this device here knows how to extract text from documents, from signs right now. But extracting text from handwritten documents from the past remains a really hard, unsolved problem. You can actually see it even in the release last week of the 1950 census. Many of the names come out incorrectly. All of that was trained with AI, doesn't work very well. Really hard problem. We know how to search the web at this point, but it's actually much harder to search library collections that are in hundreds of languages, or even the incredibly hard problem that I've seen one research group of just trying to do optical character recognition in Yiddish newspapers from 100 years ago, which might be in Yiddish, Hebrew, Cyrillic languages, smattering of English, French, and so forth. Incredibly hard problem. We know how to identify entities, humans, dogs, Fenway Park, from our phones, from JPEGs on our phones. It's much harder to extract entities from a corpus of millions of historical photographs going back to daguerreotypes, might be in many different kinds of shades and camera lenses and so forth. Very hard problem. So I assume people in this room are looking for hard problems to solve. And why do we go after the hard problems? It's because it gives us all of the technology we need to solve the easier problems, the phone problems, what we're doing every day in an experiential AI. I think that the library provides, in a sense, a very challenging playground for everyone in this room to do interesting things. I'll also just conclude by saying that the library is a supporter of experiential AI. We have a unit that focuses on research data services. So much of experiential AI is just things like normalizing data, finding data sets. We have specialists who work in there, and we also have one of the leading digital scholarship groups on the planet that also works with groups in experiential AI to help them do utterly new ways of visualization, websites, apps, and all that I'm sure will go along with this work. So the library is very happy to be a participant and a playground for all of you.
Thank you, Dan. Next is David Fields, Dean of the College of Professional Studies.
Good afternoon. So I was looking at some research and I thought I would start with a couple of statistics of where I was seeing AI. So it says, according to the IDC, the market is going, including software, hardware services, is going to grow by around $200 billion over the next 2 years. AI is going to lead to an estimated 15.7 trillion or 26% increase in global GDP by 2030. The World Economic Forum is saying it'll create 12 million new jobs in the next 3 years. LinkedIn had a 74% increase in job growth annually over the last 5 years. And my real life example at home was that my kids no longer ask me what to wear to school. They ask Alexa what the weather is going to be and what they should wear to school. So I am seeing this, as you are, pervasive throughout our communities. In the College of Professional Studies, we have a wide range of programs and academic disciplines, and it's really at the intersection of where fields come together and where that application goes into practice. And so this is true with analytics and AI as well, where we've got programs in project management, nonprofit management, human resources, leadership, that are intersecting with the fields of data and artificial intelligence. And so students will be pursuing programs of study with the intent of going into, say, human resources, or to be project managers, or to be working at a nonprofit or a hospital in the city. And they can focus and do concentrations in tracks such as AI in healthcare, AI for finance, AI for human resources, AI for business ventures. So that's where we're looking at bringing the worlds together so that, as we were talking about earlier today with some of the panelists, the data and the technology and the understanding of how to manipulate the content can be meshed with the human elements and the practical application in the fields. Moreover, what I think is really exciting is we're looking at who our students are learning from. And so we hire widely from folks that are in the fields and are teaching part-time for us while being full-time in industry. And so we've got folks that are chief data science officers, chief data officers from firms such as Accenture, Wells Fargo, Novartis, American Express, KPMG. And so the students are learning from practitioners in the field so that we can mesh learning outcomes and the skills and competencies that we know they're going to need when they graduate, but apply them in practice while they're going through their programs, pulling case studies and experiences from their faculty. In particular, what I think is really interesting is looking at how we are creating citizens that are not necessarily going to be analysts. These are folks that are I'm getting the hook, who are going to be not the data scientists, but the folks that may be chief human resource officers or working in other fields where they need the complementary skill set. So thank you very much.
Thank you, David. Yes, it is working. Next up, James Hackney, Dean of the School of Law.
Good afternoon, everyone. So I want to focus on the kind of promise, but also the kind of challenges of AI. It's been a kind of theme throughout the conference, but within the context of law. So in terms of the kind of promise of AI, it can transform the way lawyers do their jobs. It can also transform the way people experience law, and it can also help resolve legal issues. So tremendous promise. But then we also need to think of the challenges. In particular, the ethical, sustainable practices. How do we construct that? And also the just distribution of benefits as well as burdens of AI. You know, David Rue talked about the need for a leash. Well, lawyers are good at constructing leashes. I don't think that's the best way to look at it. I think the best way to look at it is collaboration. So what are we doing at the law school to accentuate the promises and address the challenges? On the research front, we have a Center for Law Information and Creativity that is very much focused, has conferences related to faculty do research in all those areas of challenge. So if we think about it, privacy concerns, facial recognition bias, unjust surveillance, we've had conferences on all of those issues. At the university level, we have an impact engine focused on information algorithms and justice, for which the law school, I think, as well as representatives from many of the colleges here are playing a major part in terms of harnessing our resources at the university level, but also partnering with business. From a learning, development, and talent perspective, you know, I take it as one of my missions as dean to train the next generation of AI specialists and have lawyers work as co-creators as well as AI practitioners. So if we think about different contexts and a private law firm, document review. As a lapsed corporate transactional lawyer, I'm all for AI and having the machines review documents as opposed to first-year associates. Corporations, lawyers as counsel to corporations with regard to the ethical and policy implications of AI. Nonprofits, can we fashion systems so that we actually increase access to justice? You know, these are all areas, because the boss is about to cut the mic, these are all areas that I think are ripe for exploration and collaboration with the Institute for Experiential AI, and we're very excited. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Next up, Elizabeth Hudson, Dean of the College of Art, Media and Design.
Thank you so much, and I can tell the provost is going to be cutting me off. What challenges and opportunities does AI offer to the disciplines in CAMD, and what do CAMD disciplines in turn offer to the future of experiential AI? Overall, CAMD fields really concentrate on a vast range of human literacies, and as a college, our mission is to use those literacies to inform and enhance cutting-edge approaches to new technologies and data. So what does that mean in the context of AI? Within CAMD, a range of approaches to AI can offer new tools for creative disciplines and human literacies, both by helping individuals go beyond human limits and resources in their creative and communicative work, but also by empowering those literacies and even creativity itself by increasing access to those tools. So non-designers may use AI as a tool to provide UX designs, for instance. It's a possibility. Even more exciting, though, I believe, is what CAMD disciplines can offer to the future of AI, namely, by enacting our deep knowledge of the human that, with AI, can significantly impact human experience. This is not speculative. CAMD researchers are already engaged in a wide range of NSF-funded research that brings our fields to bear on solving problems and enhancing human capabilities and experiences. And overall, what we're doing is establishing AI as a collaborator rather than a human competitor or replacement. And I can go on. Researchers in CAMD are working on a vast array of issues, a few examples, investigating how to use AI to improve how people make choices and interpret information, how to aid learning itself, how to invest in the future of work by using AI to support human workers' decision-making, how to help people make sense of their information-rich environment, how networks, information, and communication can impact public health or social media in positive as well as negative ways, having a crucial impact on our culture, democracy, and public discourse. And fields from design to music can improve people's quality of life and their human dignity with AI-assisted support, even harnessing AI to create socially aware product design. In all of these ways, what CAMD is doing is promoting ethical, critical, responsible, and trustworthy AI in practice, determining new ways for AI to work on a human, social, or cultural level. By partnering with AI researchers and ourselves embracing AI research, CAMD fields move beyond the critique of the often unintended ill effects of AI and other new technologies to become partners in making sure that human experience is being enhanced, not compromised, and social problems are being solved, not created. We need to be key partners in assessing what kind of data we are pulling together, as well as what human and social factors are being taken into account when creating algorithms. I would like to suggest that CAMD involvement pushes us to go beyond human in the loop to human in the lead. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Beth Minot, Dean of the Curry College of Computer Sciences.
All right. If I try to stand, I'm going to fall off, so I'm going to walk around. So nothing more troubling than asking a computer scientist what they feel about AI in 3 minutes. But I start with a recollection that one of my colleagues used to complain that when it was called AI when the system didn't work, and as soon as it started to work, then we just called it computer science. But in particular, it's important to realize that all of computer science is now being transformed with AI. Everything from how we search and collect data to how we secure the infrastructure of the internet, from the supply chain logistics systems to the communication systems to detecting violations of the systems. All of this is revolutionized with the use of AI. But we can't stop there, because AI is much more than just the modern infrastructure of our daily lives, but it's also the societal infrastructure of our lives. Another interesting thing about AI is it's the only part of computer science that has seasons. So you've heard of AI summers and AI winters. So summers is when everything is in full bloom and everything is fantastic, and winters is when the field just goes into hibernation and waits to be woken up again. And I don't know if it's because of climate change that we're in the hottest AI summer of all, but we have to manage expectations. And we have to set our sights on the wicked and challenging problems that this institute is facing. How many people read about the sell-off for parts of Watson Health? Right. Billions of dollars, $5 billion in data acquisition alone, 7,000 employees, a decade of research, sold off for $1 billion earlier this year. Right? So many parts of this, there's so many case studies of how AI systems have gone wrong because of the issues we're discussing today. Data, data, data. Data will carry every aspect of discrimination and privilege in our society into AI systems and wrap them in a black box unless we fight against that. We have to go with interdisciplinary work. We have to go with industry use-inspired partnerships. Every data project in Corey needs to have that partnership. And the important thing is that we start at the very beginning. Our freshmen take DS 2000 in partnership with these other colleges so that they learn data science methods in partnership with the fields from the very beginning. Data is not something to be studied by itself. Reasoning, well, this is how Watson Health went wrong, but so many systems go wrong. Treatment decisions, this wasn't Watson, but who would be best for this treatment? Well, let's pick patients that have proactively engaged with the healthcare system. Well, you want to know who proactively engages with the healthcare system? People who can afford it and people who come from communities that do not have natural distrust of those systems. Crime data, judicial data, recognition data, systems that can recognize Caucasian faces but not black and brown faces. So many aspects of these systems we have to work on dramatically. But there are also so many opportunities. Fantastic research in Corey looking at how not only do we protect privacy, but we advance privacy through differential privacy mechanisms that use AI as a fundamental element to reason across that data to understand what can be disclosed and what can be protected. It is important for us to realize that the digital divide used to be framed in terms of access to broadband, access to technology. We are in danger of creating so many new forms of digital divide based on what data you have in the system and how that data is being used. The mission for Corey is computer science for everyone. We want to make sure that everyone has access to the education and to the skills to wield AI, but we also want to make sure that everyone benefits. And this is the primary mission where we partner with this institute. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Beth. Uta Poiger, Dean of the College of Social Sciences and Humanities.
Thank you. I first of all want to congratulate Usama Fayyad and all the members of the Institute on Experiential AI for creating such a spirit of collaboration and partnership here today. And I hope you see this also very clearly reflected in the remarks that my dean colleagues and I are making. In all the fields united in my college, social sciences, humanities, policy, of course, AI is also increasingly important. That ranges from linking Twitter data, training algorithms on that data, and linking it to opinion polls in order to understand political opinion better, to the use of machine learning in data visualizations and 3D models as well. Anyway, needless to say, AI is everywhere for us as well. But what I want to think about today a little bit more is our interactions in the context of ethical reasoning and ethical progress with regard to AI. Generally speaking, as part of the experiential liberal arts mission that we have developed in my college, we are committed to both the constructive integration of technologies into our work in the humanities, social sciences, and policy, as well as, of course, also the critical analysis of technologies. And it is really both of those sides that I think are so important to the partnerships that we are all trying to realize. We have developed information ethics as one of our areas of strategic focus for the college. An area of strategic focus really means engagement in education and research in partnership beyond the university. And collaborations with the Institute for Experiential AI, as well as across the university and with external partners, fit squarely and are central to that focus. And indeed, this work again combines our commitment to critical analysis and constructive use of technology. Much of the work on information ethics, as well as the ethics of AI, is led by colleagues involved with Northeastern's Ethics Institute under the leadership of Ron Sandler and John Basel, and you will hear from some of them later today. Together with other colleagues in my college in Curie, in engineering, really across the university, especially also in EAI, they really work to address one of the major challenges in the development and deployment of AI systems. And that major challenge, I think, has been articulated by so many speakers today. That challenge is the lack of a robust ethics ecosystem that is integrated into the development, the deployment, and the governance of AI. So we are really, all of us, about creating a better ecosystem. Our Ethics Institute has issued a number of reports with external partners, for example, with partners at Accenture and the Atlantic Council. And in these reports, they have made the argument that we can learn from collaborative frameworks around health and ethics. At the same time, of course, we also have, under COVID, learned a lot, some of the challenges in those frameworks and what our limits still are in bringing good science to all audiences. So collaboration and partnership are so important for key moments of AI that all of you have identified and stressed today. Design, testing, governance, policy, all of that with human in the loop. And I would just, before I end, want to insert a term that I haven't heard enough today into that conversation. And that is the term community. Now, you might hear that I have a German accent. I'm, among other things, also a historian of fascism. I am not bleary-eyed. I do know that the term community can be abused. At the same time, the term community and its associated values can also be truly empowering. And I think it can be empowering in the context of another challenge that tech, that really almost all institutions have, and that is a lack of a diversity of voices at the table. I believe that with greater attention to community, we can formulate educational programs as well as define problems in such a way that we will be able to solve one of the key problems that we still have. That is the problem of diversity, and at the same time, then in partnership between academia, industry, philanthropy, be able to work together in order to make sure that more voices will be at many different tables in order to construct ethical AI for better governance and social impact. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Uta. Carmen Shepherd, Dean of the Bouvet College of Health Sciences.
Good afternoon, everybody. So let me start by saying that Bouvet College, its work starts with problems in the world. We are really immersed in trying to understand and looking to understand health from all its angles. And that only happens as we immerse ourselves in the communities, which Uta mentioned, but more importantly in the hospitals, clinics, home settings, school settings, the workplace. These are all the environments in which we learn what are the issues. When we think about health, our minds go directly to healthcare, a system that is fragmented, not doing great, that needs a lot of help. We haven't done that well in living to the expectations of quality care, access to care, and affordable care. So at Bouvet, what we like to do, and our vision is to transform the future of healthcare and to think about it not as based on sickness and cure, but as what we call health span, which is a focus on health, wellness, and care that happens in and outside of the hospital. And it happens by empowering individuals to be leading healthy lifestyles. Health is complicated, and there are many factors, and is messy in many ways. The very quick encounter of an individual with a healthcare provider is not enough to understand the context in which health is happening or not happening. The interactions between genetics, biology, behavior, environment, and social contexts. AI enabling technologies will help us address those issues, because what we are able to do is not only have robust data that is accurate, that is informative, that is relevant, but also the fact that we can use digital assistants, wearables, sensors. We can utilize persuasive technologies like games and extreme reality, AR, VR, and simulation, and telehealth and telemedicine. And all of these enablers will allow us to really impact health by giving individuals the tools to be able to impact health. And this is what we do at Bouvet. Our students are learning in the classroom, in their clinical sites, through experiential education, in and out of the co-op experience, and in various real-world settings. What are the problems that need solutions, and need solutions by yesterday? And how this informs the education that we provide and the research questions that we ask and how we address them. We are doing research in the span from cells to society, from drug discovery, therapeutic targeting, all the way to rehabilitation sciences, behavioral approaches to understanding and tracking behaviors and triggers to health outcomes, as well as public health. And public health technology is a very important aspect as well. So we look forward to collaborating with the Institute of Experiential AI, with whom we're working closely already. Thank you.
Thank you, Carmen. Hazel Siv, Dean of the College of Science.
Thank you, David. I'm thrilled to be part of this conference today. Thank you very much for the opportunity, and congratulations, Osama, on all of the efforts and this wonderful movement forward. On behalf of the College of Science, I'm going to give you a few points on the following questions. How does AI add value to College of Science research, and what can science contribute to make responsible AI that works? How does AI add value to College of Science research? A huge aspect is that most scientific data sets are huge. They are big data. And often, they are not properly analyzed because they're so big. And that's where AI has enormous promise. For example, analysis of human genomes to identify disease risk genes, analysis of the responses of a marine ecosystem to climate change, analysis of complex results obtained from particle physics, all yield big data. And because people can only process limited data sets, most is simply not used, restricting conclusions that can be drawn. And this is absolutely true in my own research and everyone else's. For example, using our outstanding Northeastern imaging facilities, fluorescence microscopy can gather millions of data points, terabytes of data, as 4D collections, as tissues are impacted by cancer, or as an axolotl limb regenerates. But a stunning 90% or more of the data collected may simply not be analyzed. AI methods have the promise to process huge data sets, uncovering patterns, reducing bias from incomplete analysis, and even discovering new laws, only noticeable through analyzing very large amounts of data. This is incredibly important. AI can also help do science that would otherwise be impossible, and Gregory Abaud touched on robotic systems that can analyze the deep ocean or other hostile, inaccessible environments. Now, what can science do to contribute to help make AI responsible and AI that works? The AI derives from mathematics. And the algorithms that drive AI are improved by going back to and drawing on mathematical principles in a virtuous cycle. And we have faculty who are joint between Curie and the Department of Mathematics who are working on these types of improvements and iterations. Scientific problems can test whether AI is rigorous and avoids bias. For example, a problem in physics that actually has a clear solution can be used to test AI algorithms and address whether or not they are true and rigorous and without bias. And ideas from science have shaped AI. Neural networks derived from neuroscience and the connectivity between billions of neurons in the brain are driving the kinds of neural network-derived AI systems that have potential power. I'll end with another wonderful example that is a coalescence between AI and science, and again has connectivity between improvements and development and using data. In human movement, even simple things like drinking a cup of coffee or eating your lunch involves movements that are very complex and hard to analyze. To understand the motor skills involved and how these are impacted by things like stroke or autism, investigators in the college are working with AI specialists, AI scientists, AI, what are they called? AI somethings. Practitioners, thank you, Usama, to develop mechanisms to understand movement, to develop algorithms to understand movement, and to apply them to help society and to move everything forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hazel. And last, but by no means least, Emery Trahan, Dean of the Damore McKim School of Business.
Thank you. Good afternoon. The DeMoore-McKim strategic plan is about digital convergence and making decisions in a world of increasing volumes of data, faster and enhanced analytical methods, and the need to combine data analytics with human judgment. So we see AI as a key element of successful digital convergence. There is a pressing need to better connect research and teaching in business with more advanced capabilities around AI. Business is the epitome of experiential, so we think the Institute for Experiential AI is a great opportunity for DeMoore-McKim to work with a partner who will allow us to enhance our understanding and use of AI to solve business problems, make business decisions that ultimately improve the human condition. As an example, I'll briefly consider 3 areas of interest to our business faculty: natural language processing, many applications in marketing and data analytics. In accounting and auditing, NLP can analyze complex and lengthy textual reports that contain redundant information. This also liberates humans from the tedious and laborious task. A second important area is building better business decision models. And I'll just briefly give a few examples of things that our faculty are currently working on. AI models to create human-machine pricing algorithms to automate B2B pricing, identifying opportunities and challenges of using biometric data in business applications, AI-augmented product design, AI for capacity planning in operating rooms. And in financial markets, AI is replacing many traders as it follows rules and algorithms better than humans without the influence of psychological biases. But it does not have human intelligence, as many have noted, and judgment and things like macroeconomic events, political movements, inter-country arms races or wars. AI can miss the big picture when dwelling on small points, and you need to bring in human judgment to bring in those aspects. And then the third area of importance to us is, as just about everyone has noted, I think, is understanding and addressing biases and unintended consequences that may come from AI. And AI is a double-edged sword, it seems. It can significantly enhance human bias, human business decision-making, but at the same time amplify human biases. And as our faculty member Nada Saunders noted yesterday in giving the 58th annual Klein Lecture here at Northeastern, regarding humans and machines, the strengths of one are the weaknesses of the other, right? And we really need both to make the right kinds of decisions. So I think humans need to be the ultimate decision maker, and AI is a toolbox. It's not a replacement device, and we need to ensure that we understand the biases and unintended consequences of AI as we bring together the collective intelligence of humans and machines to make better decisions. And I guess I have a second left. But I would just note from the comments of all of my colleagues today and the presentations this morning that all of these problems cross multiple disciplines, right? And we need to connect interdisciplinary teams across colleges, hopefully working with industry partners to solve these problems using AI. But thank you.
Thank you, Emery, and thank you to all the deans. We're now open for discussion. I'll be tossing some questions at our deans, but if anyone wants to ask a question, please come forward.
David?
I stole that mic, but I will give it to you if you want to ask a question.
David, maybe I can kick it off.
Sure.
Before the Seasons of AI in 1956 was an event in Dartmouth that maybe many of you might know of, where artificial intelligence, they claim, was defined that day. But long story short, most of the things they studied actually have progressed. One area that hasn't, and maybe I'm just missing it, creativity. They claim that machines would be creative, create art. They would claim that machines would be creative solutions to problems. Is that an area that's not developed, or is it not worth it anymore? Is it impossible for machines to do? What are your feelings on that?
So my thoughts versus my feelings might be two different things. So yes, there is some progress in that area, and there is some attempts in which machines, sort of produce, creative works of art. There's a question about what that means and what that does. And so I guess what I would suggest is that, well, yeah, that's sort of like a cool gimmick. And I really do believe it's much more fruitful to talk about the relationship of the kinds of information that machine learning in relationship to creativity can offer to creators as partners. I think there's like fantastic stuff that can enhance creativity, but I just believe that they work better in partnership rather than as a replacement. And you know, there's lots of work actually where people look at what does it mean? Can you tell the difference? Some people can't tell the difference, and so therefore, what does that mean? But anyway, I think it's a sort of a silly argument personally. But.
And I think what's lovely is the types of breakthroughs that you can have when you go through that collaborative partnership process, right? So both from an individual where systems can amplify human creativity, but some of my favorite work from years ago was a robotic drummer. And so the robot drummer was creating music, but the beautifulness was when the drummer was then jamming with other musicians. And because the creation of music was quite different from the machine generated to the human generated, but they were able to learn and riff with each other to the point that also the robotics included just the ability to make the eye contact and do the pass, right, to shift within that musical collaboration. So that research solves so many interesting technical and design challenges by not focusing, I think, on the representative problem of can machines be creative, but actually look at the quite productive problem of how do we create together.
There's just some really, I participate in a lot of really interesting examples of exactly that, where the play actually in live interaction with robotics is actually sort of produces amazing challenges to the human creators in jazz or different kinds of music that I've seen it happen with. And it is sort of inspirational. But again, the key is the partnership and the collaboration rather than replacement.
Gregory,
Yeah, so because we're being far too polite and not very controversial, I'll throw some comments out here to stoke the flames. I was at that lecture yesterday with this contrast between what humans are good at and what machines are good at. And people often say that humans are good at creativity and machines are not. But we see definitions of creativity that say exploring a space. I would argue if we have dimensions of a space, a machine is far better at exploring the entirety of that space than any human would be. So what's more creative?
I was just going to add, I think it stretches our definition of creativity. And I would say right now there are Eastern and Western models, right? So in the West, you would think of a blank canvas potentially where you add color, you add paint. In Eastern models, oftentimes you start with a block of stone and you take away what isn't needed to reveal the art. And so I think adding this new element of AI adds a new definition to what we think of as creation and creativity.
And I can't resist one more comment here. You know, a lot of researchers in creativity actually are delving into the various forms of creativity, and so it is essential, what are we really talking about? And I think there's no question that machines are brilliant at what many researchers talk about as small c creativity. Of course they can do it. Anybody can do small c creativity, and machines can do it brilliantly. But what is big C creativity that is domain changing? And what is that sort of creation of novel connections that no one's thought of before? And are they interesting or not? So machines might be able to make some suggestions, but I don't believe there's going to be experts at big C.
What is big C creativity?
This is what's talked about a lot. I can refer you to a number of scholars who have laid this out in detail. Actually, mostly from the fields of psychology and education, but.
Go ahead, please.
I'll change the subject. First, I want to, Uta, thank you for talking about the community. I think that's something we need to do more of. We don't do enough of that at Northeastern. But I'm going to go back. Osama's question this morning to industry folks about what do they expect from academia. And I like to ask the deans, what are your expectations from the institute? How can institute elevate Northeastern? What should the institute do? How can we, as an associate dean, work with the institute to make sure it's successful and impactful?
Great. I was going to ask this, a variant of that question, which is, you know, if I hand you the keys, if you're Osama, if I hand you the keys, what would you do? Emery.
I
I think, as I mentioned at the end of my talk, better connecting with industry partners too, right? And you had some great examples this morning, but we should really be co-creating a lot of what we're building here with industry partners.
Carmen, and then Hazel, and then Dan.
I think it also will be very important to utilize the expertise of the Institute of Experiential AI to provide professional development and opportunities for our faculty and our students to learn about AI differently than in the context of classes and courses, but really experience it firsthand. Because otherwise it's very dry. We think about data and we think about tools, and I don't mean to minimize that, but I think it's how we utilize them and give examples of that in working together with all of us, right? The learners, the innovators, the designers, the engineers, all of us together, I think will be very important. Research is happening. That's more easy for it to happen, but it is the other components of the talent, how we create those game changers in AI.
Thank you. Hazel?
I think all the time about the connection between industry and academia and talk about bringing the walls down between industry and academia. And I think the Experiential AI Institute actually can be a broker for that kind of wall destruction. But what do we mean? Do we mean one thing, the same, industry and academia becomes the same, or are there different values? And I think there are clearly different values for me. In academia, I think we do frontier research. It can be translational, it can have societal impact, but there is also this sense of discovery, of breaking frontiers in ways that are not there in industry, which is really usually product-oriented. In fact, it is product-oriented. But the coalescence between breaking the frontiers, discovering, collaborating, doing things that have translational impact or the promise to it, and actually connecting in an intertwined way this aspect of frontiers, breaking frontiers from academia with devising products in industry. I think that that's where there is a coalescence, and I think that that is, why universities are still so important and terrific, and we need to work hard. And, Osama, I think you're well positioned to help broker this, to really make this transition from one to the other, industry to academia, more of a continuum than a divide.
Thank you. I think Dan and then Elizabeth, I think.
Yeah, so I think Usama and I have had some initial conversations about this, but I'm a firm believer that major advances, or maybe we could call them BigC Creativity, comes from synthesis of multiple domains, right, of unexpected alignment of techniques, methodologies, data sets from domains that haven't been explored together. And so I think that the Institute is going to provide a lot of real-world experiences that then, by again, sort of bringing them together, dovetailing them together with some academic expertise, again, provides some chances for creativity of any capitalization going forward.
Elizabeth?
And I would just say that I think there's an incredible opportunity to influence industry in new ways because, I'm talking about CAMD and everything we can sort of do to participate in AI, but it's not thought of, particularly by industry partners often, that we can be valuable partners in that. And so that's a role that the Institute of Experiential AI can really do, is bring us into the conversation, and I hope, therefore, be able to influence and make positive changes.
Thank you. I think Uta and then Beth.
Yeah, I think we are all seeing so much opportunity for partnership and are also particularly interested in seeing how students will be part of learning how to be truly collaborative in order to fulfill the big ambitions of EAI. I would just say also, and that is, I think, a call for all of our institutions, academia, philanthropy, the private sector as well, to think yet more about what we can do about the incentive systems that make it possible for the different voices that I mentioned before, and that many of my colleagues have mentioned as well, to be at the table. So to really be thoughtful about where can we on a project-based level, try to turn the dial. And that means probably partnerships with the nonprofit sector, with smaller local organizations at certain moments, perhaps in the spirit of the themes that you laid out. Perhaps there's ultimately some other themes that would be added to the core themes of the Institute in order to make that happen. But that's definitely one of the great challenges and great opportunities that I'm seeing.
Right. And there's so much in trusted broker and access to data and industry partnerships, but to focus on two I's. The first is inspiration. You know, my initial collaborations with AI researchers decades ago basically boiled down to, but Beth, we can recognize anything. You need to tell us what matters, right? So in all of these domains, it has to be done in partnership. No AI work solo, no AI work done alone. And then impact, right? In alignment with the academic plan, the ability for the work that we're doing here to have a discernible, measurable impact in the rest of the world is what we're looking for.
Gregory?
I'm really concerned you didn't get the exact answer to your exact question. If I had the keys to IEAI, I would drive to the Bay Area, pick up Usama, and take him wherever he wants to go. It was a fantastic choice. Having Usama. But the other point I would make is jumping up from the Institute to the RU and its model for how it started to figure out what it was going to do. It didn't hire faculty and then find people to justify those faculty's existence. It hired business development and then hired faculty to address what the business development said needed to be done. That's not what academics do. So I think that was a good choice.
Look, I can't help. No. Nothing to do with the car. And thank you, Gregory, for an amazing comment there. But in all seriousness, whether it's big C or little c creativity, take it and apply it to every one of your fields. I know computer science and engineering folks are extremely comfortable leveraging computers in enhancing how they work and how they address problems in the world. But guess what? Social scientists, right? Use it as a tool to enhance your creativity. Business, how do you negotiate a digital and data world effectively when you're running businesses and impacting the economy? Lawyers, how do you remove all that kind of robotic waste of time, et cetera, and focus the lawyers on thinking about the strategic issues that have to do with dealing with issues of law and issues of practice. And I can go through every field, professionals. Absolutely, I think there's a lot of contributions to design and creativity in that sense if you use it as a tool. I'm not all for machine creativity. I think it's a great tool to kind of get stuff done. And I'm, by the way, so thankful and so excited to see you all engaged in this discussion. Thank you.
Sound like you want to take over our jobs, Usama. But that's good. That's good.
So, Pataki, let's take one more question, and then I think we'll have to wrap it up.
Thanks, David. So this was a great panel, but the entire conversation has been focused on higher ed and the domain expertise in each of the colleges and artificial intelligence. My question is whether there's an opportunity for driving education of K12 students before they get to higher ed and getting them literacies in AI and various fields so that when they get to higher ed, they're more equipped to flourish.
Yeah, can I speak to that?
Go right ahead, James.
So just kind of one example would be the area of kind of ethics of technology that you can begin teaching to students at a very early age. So one of the things that Ari Waldman, who has our Center for Technology and Creativity, is focused on cyber harassment, for example. So we can go to students early on, talk about the ethics of how do you conduct yourself on the internet through text messaging, et cetera. And those are lessons that can kind of filter up as people move up the kind of educational system. So I think we can begin early.
I need some AI to keep track of the order. So I'm just going to start from the other side. David, did you want to say something? You good?
I was just going to say we have a school of education in the college, and work very closely with the K12 systems around sort of the baseline skills and competencies that students need to achieve just to kind of be able to move into some of those more advanced fields.
We have a growing number of faculty across CAMD who are actually really interested in exactly this issue, and what we're thinking about and keep talking about as a passion project is this idea of creativity as a pathway to STEM, in which it really increases access to a much broader cross-section of people to inspire them to get involved at that younger level in areas in computer science, in AI, that otherwise they don't think they care and they don't think it matters to them. So I do feel like that those sort of creative disciplines that involve and require intensive work with coding and computer science and all the way up to AI are sort of critical to make that impact.
Right. I mean, just so many of our faculty with their outreach activities in the K-12 space, but the SMASH Academy is one example where working with students and AI is part of the toolbox, right? So learning how to wield those tools, but most important is that it's an orientation around problem solving and problem solving for their communities, so that they're not thinking of this in the abstract, but they're thinking about how would they improve the life around them and the community around them.
That absolutely. I am in our Bridge to Science suite of programs. The notion is how to deal with science, that it's interesting, that it's about everyday use, that everyone uses science every day and it's not scary. And, part and parcel is data. And I think rather than teaching AI per se, it's about how to deal with data. What do you do with it? What does data mean? What do you do with it? And is it scary? Well, a little, but you can deal with it. You're smart enough, and it's useful, and it's part of your life and part of your community's life. So I think it's more this sort of being able to deal with data that is so important, and it interfaces then well with AI and machine learning and computer science.
Yeah, I would just agree that we have lots more opportunities to think about the integration of AI, technical computational skills with other domains in that context as well. And to right-size that for high school audiences or even younger audiences, I think is definitely a challenge that we will want to collaborate on.
We've actually developed a badge in innovations in the health professions, precisely to start tackling that issue. And what I would add is that it would be very important for K through 12, particularly as they are using phones on a regular basis, and they are immersed in healthy behaviors, in talking about health in the families and friends and community. So health is something familiar to them, and connecting the dots of those cell phones and machines that kids are using with health will be very easy to do, and that's what we're trying to do and planning to do with these innovations in the health professions. Because the key is to talk about AI not only with the human in the loop, but is for the human in the loop.
Jean, it's a good question, and we're building some very high-quality digital scalable products and programs, and synchronous, asynchronous. There could be face-to-face components, but that could be a great vehicle for leveraging what we're doing here and getting it out to other audiences like the K-12 audience.
Just quickly, I think your question is more general than just about AI in terms of K-12 outreach. We have a problem of teaching to the test in our country versus teaching to the problem. And we also have a challenge with AI that things are black boxes that appear to work, and no one is encouraged to open up that black box and understand why it works and why it may not work. And that's a curiosity-driven problem seeker that we need to educate for.
Thank you. Let's take one last question, and then we'll have one dean answer it.
All right, so thank you so much, everyone, for being here. I think I wanted to ask this question because there are all the deans here, and this is a collaborative question. So I'm a researcher, and I know how it's for us, right? So it's very narrow how we study things, biology or science. And I wanted to know if you could take this opportunity for this center to bridge some of your disciplines, right? Most of you maybe this is the first time you see each other for months. How can you bridge all these disparate, disciplines? I think there are intersections, right? Because in our work, for example, for biologists, sometimes you cannot understand the system if you don't look at the context. Or you were saying, for example, genetics, biology, social context, right? So there is many things that we can study, and I'm not sure if you have been thinking on how you could bridge all these great disciplines that we have here with all the deans.
There's probably a lot more interaction than you might be aware of. These people before you spend a lot of time together and talking together. But would someone like to respond? Hazel.
I heard biology and genetics, so I thought that's me. But actually, it's not me. Actually, biology and genetics spans really all of our disciplines in different ways. And I think one of the wonderful things about Northeastern is that we are so open about the importance of cross-disciplinarity and the power of cross-disciplinary thinking and research, all the way from educating our students, all the way into our research. Cross-disciplinarity is actually how we think here. And it's a little challenging, but we work together very closely to find joint faculty hires who are in psychology and CSSH, or who are in biology and Bouvet, or who are in chemical engineering and chemistry, and sometimes even in other. What did I lose? I left you at. We have it all over the place.
We have in biology.
Whatever kind of beyond genetics and biology, the grid of cross-disciplinarity between our colleges at Northeastern is very strong and very powerful. And I have to say, beyond genetics and biology, I think we are really quite an extraordinary university in promoting this powerful, mind-stretching thinking that transcends disciplines. So you should be very encouraged that we are doing it at Northeastern, and it's exciting and it's powerful, and is taking our research into new dimensions.
Great, thank you very much. Jennifer, did you want to?
I just want to add that the exciting thing that's happening at the Experiential AI is that we benefit from this. As you see from all the initiatives that the deans are talking about, is that our institute has 90 faculty, and it's across all colleges, because we can see that AI is pervasive, it's everywhere, and we need to work together. And I'm so excited, and you'll find as a researcher here at Northeastern, you'll find that your faculty mentor will be collaborating a lot with other disciplines, and you'll see, our hope is that we'll have more of these, we'll have a lot of projects working together, and we are already doing that. So it's so exciting, and thank you for supporting this initiative.
So on that note, thank you very much.